This is Flowers on the Stage.
Passion and competence. You know, you want somebody that knows what they're doing, but you also want somebody that's not just following the trends, and it's actually got a passion about doing something real, authenticity. I think for me, it's like don't like anything too much too early. Like you tend to pigeonhole yourself a little bit if you know exactly what you like and too early and you stick to it. I think understanding similarities to things that you do like and other things that you don't like is important, and um, just and keeping an open mind about what's out there.
Right. Do you ever find like you're in conflict with perfectionism though, even, not being like sold on anything too early? Do you ever find yourself not being sold on things finally?
Finally,
Hmm.
yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot of things I don't get right away. Like I'm one of the millions of people who probably can take credit for not getting Herbie Hancock thrust when it came out. Like I kind of got Headhunters, but when Thrust came out, it was way over my head, and I had to come back to it. So that was uh that was an early lesson in not taking yourself too seriously. Because when you miss something like that, you're like, wow, okay, there's a possibility that I could not know anything. So that's kind of a good bench point to realize that you might not know anything, and then um, take your time absorbing things.
I love it. So zooming out away from collaboration, I'd love to hear what you've learned over the course of your career about what is most important and kind of can't be avoided if someone's going to be a great leader.
Well, I think just work ethic. You got to put the time in. You got to put the time in. That I think that was one of the greatest lessons from my tenure with the Rolling Stones, is that at their age, when I got there 10 years ago, they were they were working pretty hard, and I was kind of amazed that with their resume, their catalog, everything they'd done, that they were still putting in that much work. And it definitely was an eye opener for me. I think you just have to kind of know what you want to do, to be a leader. You kind of
Mhm.
got to have an idea where you're going,
Mhm.
and that being a leader kind of means you're trying to create your own world, to a certain extent, and whether it's in business, music, you know, art, whatever, you're trying to create your own world. And that just takes time and effort and vision, of what you want to do. And I think, making things just takes work.
Jumping to the side, would love to talk about new Greyboy album coming out, Grab Bag.
Well, we make a lot of music over the years. We've just, had um, times where we say, all right, let's get together and make a record. And, we'll get together and, we crank out tunes really fast. It's kind of like, all of us are writers. So, there's a lot of ideas flowing back and forth, and we're pretty fast at turning nothing into something. And so over the years, we've just had, um, what we considered failed attempts, in certain instances where like a lot of the stuff on this record, um, they're kind of just random things that we were doing and not really looking at it like, okay, this is going to be a record, but this is part of a record. This might be record. This, oh, I don't like that tune, that kind of stuff. And then you come around 3 or 4 years later and you listen to it and you're like, that's a great track. What was wrong with it? Absolutely nothing. So that's kind of what Grab Bag is that conclusion that there's nothing wrong with these songs. And we've definitely got at least another record's worth of songs of the same quality sitting around. So we just finally decided to get them out there.
I love it. So my next question here, in your playing and especially like with your improvisation, how much is something that you've kind of learned before versus what you're intuiting?
I would say about 50-50. You kind of know what you're going for most of the time, but you're also trying to create on the spot, so that it isn't rote. And so I would say probably about 50-50. And I'm trying to up that, more towards what I know as I get older. I'm trying to learn more things to the point where they're actually useful in the moment and be more spontaneous using the tools that I have, as opposed to just flying by the seat of my pants all the time. So it's a process, like I'm still learning so much. And this band, especially because I play so much more saxophone than I do in any other situation, it's kind of my favorite for that, because it's the situation where I'm learning the most about the saxophone.
The Greyboy Allstars released their 8th studio album, Grab Bag, 2007 to 2023. Listen to the full album at greyboyallstars.com. Now back to the episode. I'd love to hear, like, as both a musician, but also just as a fan, like what you would say is so powerful about music that's made up spontaneously and why it can be so like moving.
I mean, I think music in general is just um, is just a great communicator, and when you know what you're going to hear, when you know what somebody's going to say, it's just so much different than when you don't know what they're going to say. And I think that's what improvisation's about. You don't know what they're going to say, so you're waiting, and hopefully you get a great surprise. And that's really the point of it. There's bands like when I talk to people about bands like the Grateful Dead or Widespread Panic, friends of mine that are really into them, and they're traveling with them and they're hearing shows every night, and they'll and there'll be a consensus that, like, oh, Friday night was terrible, but freaking Tuesday was unbelievable, and that's just kind of the dynamic of making real music, or making real art. Is sometimes it's going to suck, and sometimes it's going to be all right, and sometimes it's going to be incredible, and that's what improvisation is about. Is sometimes you're just going to fall on flat on your face, and sometimes you're going to, like, soar above the clouds, kind of thing.
I'd love to hear something that you believe about life now that you didn't believe when you were younger.
I mean, the most important thing, that I was raised Christian, so I was a monotheist for most of my life, and now I'm not. And that's been, a huge eye opener in terms of just looking at the world and realizing that we're on our own. We're doing this. I'm not waiting for some thing other than me to do what I need to get done. And that was a real process, because I was raised very, very religiously. And, I understand the written word, the scripture, so to say. But over my lifetime of like kind of searching out my own answers, and getting to the point where I realized that all of that was really a little bit naive, like it's like we're a bunch of creatures, searching in the dark, and you finally realize that, oh, it's only dark if I don't freaking turn on a fire or something, like it's within my control, most of it, and the things that are out of my control, I should know what they are. So I would say that's the big thing.
What do you think you would say to young you, or if you'd prefer to answer it like this, what do you think young you would say to you now if they could?
uh, uh where have you been? I was struggling down here, you but I'm a Capricorn, and it's said that, not that I believe that deeply in astrology, but I actually believe more in birth order and things like that. But they do say that Capricorns mature late. We're late bloomers, so it's kind of part of the game.
Hmm. If you don't mind me asking, what would you say at this point is your biggest self-doubt?
My biggest self-doubt, I'm kind of self-taught to a large extent in terms of what I know musically. I would say that's my biggest self-doubt, is like, I just got a sax teacher, at 67 years old, because there's things that I want to know better that I don't know, I've tricked my way through my whole life. So I think my biggest self-doubt is just in my own understanding of certain things.
My last question for you. There's one like takeaway or lesson or just something you're all about, based on everything you've been through and who you are. What would you say that is?
Being correct, not being right. I think everybody's trying to be right all the time and not as interested in being correct. And I try to take the time to figure out what's actually there and what's real, and fact check myself, fact check other people, fact check things to be correct about the world around me, about myself, about life, and not trying to be right. Like, if I'm having a discussion with somebody, and we can easily go, pick up our phone and Google it, I'm totally happy with that, whether I'm right or wrong in that discussion, so we can move on to bigger things.
Well, yeah, I mean, so many people want to go for an easy answer and just kind of think they understand something without like fully grasping it. For sure. I feel like that's almost human nature at this point.
It really is. Being right is like kind of our I think our biggest downfall is everybody trying to be right all the time instead of trying to be correct.
Mhm. Well, Carl, this has been awesome, man. Definitely, appreciate you coming correct on the interview.
All
And
right.
yeah, we got Grab Bag coming out. Got a link in the description to the website so y'all can follow them on socials and stream that. And yeah, man, thanks so much for taking the time to join me here.
My pleasure. I'll see you soon. Take care.
This is Flowers on the Stage, a podcast about being creative and finding success. To support it, please check out our sponsors, New Belgium Brewing and Thrax CBD.